Nohay, my mother. Your baby will go to your infertile sister. You're not ready to be a mother. Now, I hit record and put her on speaker. She cried not for me, only for her ruined reputation. He said that my mother wouldn't let him see me, that she was still in shock from what had happened. Veronica had moved to another city, according to Aunt Joyce. Daniel had officially filed for divorce, and the court ordered Veronica to attend mandatory sessions with a psychologist after she threw a tantrum in his office and threatened him. Grandma Martha, who had been silent all this time, suddenly sent me a package. Inside were money, $500, children's clothes, stuffed animals, and a card. Hang in there, girl. You're stronger than you think. I love you, Grandma. I cried as I read the letter, for the first time in months. When the contractions started, Marcus took me to the hospital. Aunt Joyce and Sheila came right away. Dad sent a text message. Hang in there, but it looks very convincing. She used your profile picture, my nickname, and even timed the messages to look like they were from 2 months ago. Grace, she's going to show this to Marcus. I was shaking. I sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching the phone so tightly that my fingers hurt. She just wrote to you like that? Why? She said she wanted to warn me that you're unstable and that I should be careful around you. Grace, this is crazy. She's really going to do something bad to you. I thanked Tess and hung up. I sat on the bed, staring at the blank screen of my phone, trying to collect my thoughts. Veronica faked the correspondence. She's willing to destroy my relationship with Marcus to get me to give her the baby. We arrived at my dorm, and I went up to my room. I turned on my laptop, opened the file with the recording he had agreed to give me, and started listening again. Edgard's voice was calm but sad. His story destroyed the image of Veronica I had known all my life. The phone rang. Dad. Grace, come home now. What happened? Daniel is here. He wants to talk to you about Veronica. I arrived in 20 minutes. Daniel was sitting in the kitchen looking confused. Dad was standing by the window. Mom was nowhere to be seen. Grace. Daniel stood up when I entered. I need to ask you something. I sat down across from him. I'm listening. He rubbed his face nervously. Veronica told me that you offered to give her the baby. Every morning, looking at myself in the mirror, I thought, this is my child, mine, and no one will take it away from me. On Thursday evening, when I returned home from college, my mother was waiting for me at the dorm door. She stood with a folder in her hands, her face calm, even cold. Grace, we need to talk, she said without greeting me. I didn't want to let her into my room, but she was already walking up the stairs, and I had to follow her. When we entered, my mother sat down on the only chair, put the folder on the table, and opened it. You may think it's over, she began, looking at me. But you're wrong. Veronica and I have already started the process of obtaining custody of the child. Here are the documents. She took out several sheets of paper and placed them in front of me. We had only been dating for 9 months. I was still studying. We had no money. But then, when I saw the 2 lines on the test, something inside me changed. I wanted this child. For the first time in my life, I wanted something of my own, something that my mother didn't approve of, something that Veronica hadn't checked. Just mine. Marcus was delighted. He hugged me and said, "We'll manage together." And I believed him. But before I told my mother, I accidentally overheard Veronica talking to Daniel in the living room. I'd come to my parents' house for the weekend, and they were sitting on the couch, thinking I was in the shower. Veronica was crying. She had just returned from another unsuccessful attempt at fertilization, the 3rd in a year. "I can't take it anymore," she sobbed. "I'm doing everything right. Why isn't it working for me? I'm looking for a man named Edgar Bill. He may have lived in this city 5 years ago." Pause. "It will cost a certain amount." I paid the advance via online transfer when they told me the amount. "Okay. What information do you have about him?" "Almost none, just his name, and the assumption that he was connected to my sister." "Okay, give me your sister's name, date of birth, if you know it, and any other details. I dictated everything I knew about Veronica. The detective said he would contact me within a week and hung up. "What now?" Marcus asked. "Now we wait." But we didn't have to wait a week. 3 days later, the detective called. "Miss Caldwell, I found Edgard Bill. He lives in a neighboring state and works as an insurance agent. Yesterday, she brought home a bunch of toys. I tried to talk to her, but she won't listen. She says she's getting ready. That soon the baby will be with us." He raised his head, his eyes red. "Grace, I don't know what to do. She's losing touch with reality. I tell her that the baby isn't ours, that you won't give it up, but she doesn't hear me. She's furnished an entire room. She painted the walls pink, even though she doesn't even know if it's a boy or a girl. Grace, she's going crazy." I didn't know what to say. I imagined Veronica in an empty room, arranging toys and talking to herself about a child she will never have. "I tried to talk to your mom," Daniel continued, "but she just supports it." "Why, Grace, why are you doing this? I just want everyone to be happy. Veronica has been trying to get pregnant for years. She's spent so much money on these procedures, cried herself to sleep at night. And you accidentally got pregnant at 22 by a man you don't even live with. It's logical that the child will be better off with her. She's ready. She has everything. A home, stability, a loving family." My face was burning. "And what about me? Am I worthless?" "Don't twist my words." Mom waved her hand. "You can have more children later, when you're older, when you have a normal job, a normal husband. But now it's just stupid. Veronica wanted to talk to you herself, but I decided it would be better if I prepared you first. Get out and don't come back until you realize that the baby is mine." I ran out of the room and down the stairs. Daniel was standing in the hallway, his face pale. "She's going crazy," I said, trembling. "Daniel, she needs help. Real help." He nodded, without looking at me. "I know." I left the house, got in the car, and sat there for a long time, clutching the steering wheel. My hands were shaking, and my vision was blurry. I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I couldn't let Veronica and my mother destroy my life. I took out my phone and dialed Daniel's number. He answered after the first ring. "Come to my place in an hour," I said. "There's something you need to know about your wife, about why she can't actually have children. He's been on a flight for 2 weeks now, but he always trusts my judgment. The main thing is for you to understand that it's not because we don't love you. It's just that Veronica deserves this happiness. She's been through so much. 3 failed attempts, hormone therapy, daily injections, and you just live your life, don't think about the consequences, and suddenly you're pregnant. It's unfair to her." I was silent, looking at my mother's face, calm, confident. She really believed what she was saying. For her, it was the solution to the problem. Rational, correct. "And when exactly do I have to give up the baby?" I asked quietly. "Well, after the birth, of course. Veronica has already started looking for a lawyer to get everything sorted out properly. Custody, all the paperwork. Don't worry, everything will be legal." Daniel stood up, paced around the room, then stopped by the window. "She never told me she was married. She said I was her first serious relationship, that before me, she only had short flings." "I didn't know either," I said quietly. "No one knew." He turned back to me, his eyes so tired that it hurt to look at him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have a right to know the truth. Because Veronica is using you just like she uses everyone else. And because she won't stop. She truly believes that my child belongs to her, and she'll do anything to take it away." Daniel nodded, rubbing his face with his hands. "Thank you for telling me. I need time to process this." Grace, what are you... This is... She reached for the phone, but I pushed it away. "Repeat that, please. Everyone is listening. Aunt Joyce, Grandma, Lenny, and Kate. Tell them about your family decision." Mom jumped up, tried to grab the phone, but I managed to jump out of the way. Her face contorted. "Grace Caldwell, turn that off right now. How dare you?" Aunt Joyce's voice came through the phone, sharp and indignant. "Belinda, is this true? You want to take the child away from Grace and give it to Veronica?" Then my grandmother's voice, trembling with anger. "What madness is this? Belinda, she's your daughter. It's her child." Lenny's voice. "That's illegal, isn't it?" Mom stood in the middle of the kitchen, her hands shaking, her face contorted. "What truth? That she made mistakes years ago? That she didn't tell us about her marriage? And that's none of your business, Grace. You had no right to dig into her past." I stood there looking at my mother, at her red face, at the tears streaming down her cheeks, and suddenly something inside me snapped. I didn't want to listen to this anymore. I didn't want to be the one who was yelled at and blamed anymore. "Sit down," I said firmly. "What?" "Sit down and shut up. I'm talking now." Mom froze, her mouth open in surprise. She wasn't used to me talking to her like that. "Grace, how dare you? I said sit down." She sat down, still looking at me with indignation. I took out my phone, found the recording of my conversation with Edgar, and pressed play. About my mother. About the family decision. About Veronica not being able to have children and now wanting to take my child away. About the anonymous message I received with his name on it. Edgar was silent for so long that I thought he had hung up. "Edgar?" "I'm here," he finally replied. "I just didn't think it would ever come up." "Okay, I'll tell you, but not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere neutral?" "Oh, I can come to your city on the weekend. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in the city center. Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. When I told Marcus, he insisted that I not go alone. You don't know this man. It could be dangerous. He's Veronica's ex-husband. He's not a maniac. I'm coming with you anyway." I remember how she played on her colleagues' feelings to get better shifts or to avoid being blamed for mistakes. But this is beyond the pale. That evening, I returned to my parents' house. Dad had finally arrived from his flight. His truck was parked in the driveway. When I walked in, he was sitting on the couch in the living room, tired with a mug of beer in his hand. Mom was in the kitchen, banging pots and pans. "Dad," I sat down next to him. "Do you know what happened?" He nodded without looking at me. "Joyce called, she told me." "And what do you think?" He sighed and rubbed his face with his hands. "Grace, I don't know. Your mom, she wants what's best. For Veronica. For you. She's always done that. Dad, she wants to take my baby away. We'll deal with this now." Sheila lived in a small house on a quiet street. When we arrived, she met us at the door, her face stern. She was a short, stocky woman with short gray hair and piercing brown eyes. "Come in," she said curtly. We sat down at the kitchen table. Sheila placed her phone in front of her with the screenshots open. "Grace," she began, looking me in the eye, "I haven't known you long, but I've known Belinda since we worked together. She's always been controlling. So when she called me the day before yesterday, I didn't believe her right away. But when she sent this," she pointed to the screen. "I had my doubts. She used to work as a nurse in the maternity ward and had seen enough life stories to have her own opinion about how relationships should be built. She always treated me well, but distantly, as if she were assessing whether I was right for her son." "Mom," Marcus began, but then his phone rang. The name Mom lit up on the screen. He glanced at me, then answered the call. "Hello." I couldn't hear what Sheila was saying, but I could see Marcus's face change. First surprise, then confusion, then anger. "Mom, that's not true," he said firmly. "Who told you that?" Pause. "Belinda? Mom Grace? When?" Another pause, longer. "No, Mom, that's not true. Grace didn't... Wait, I'm coming. Now." Mom sat across from me at the kitchen table, holding a cup of chamomile tea and looking past me, as if she were discussing the dinner menu rather than the future of my unborn child. "Grace, you're younger." she said in a calm, almost indifferent tone. Veronica has fertility issues. When you give birth, the baby will go to her. You're not ready to be a mother anyway. It's a family decision. I sat there, clutching a half-empty glass of water between my fingers, unable to move. My heart was pounding in my throat, and my head felt empty, as if someone had turned off the light. A family decision. She said it as if she were talking about who would get Grandma's old quilt. What? I managed to squeeze out. Mom, what are you talking about? Belinda, my mother, looked up from her cup and glanced at me with slight irritation, as if I hadn't understood something basic. Why are you reacting like that? Veronica is older. She has a stable job, a husband. You haven't even finished college. And you're Marcus. He's a dispatcher. What prospects does he have? She shrugged. Children are a big responsibility. You know you can't handle it. My hands were shaking. I put the glass on the table, afraid I would drop it. The silence in the kitchen seemed deafening. All I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. 3 months. I had been carrying a child for 3 months, and only a week ago I had gathered the courage to tell my mother, and she had already decided everything. For me, without me. All my life, I had been Veronica's shadow. When I was 7 and she was 14, my mother took her to dance competitions and left me with my grandmother. When Veronica graduated from school with honors, my mother threw a big party. When I graduated, we just ate cake at home. When Veronica married Daniel, the wedding cost as much as a new car. When I introduced Marcus to my mother, she just nodded and said, "Okay, the main thing is that you're happy." I got used to it. I accepted it. Even when I enrolled in college to study accounting, even though I dreamed of being an artist, I thought, Mom will be happy. It's practical, it's stable. Maybe she'll finally see that I'm worth something too. I met Marcus at work in a supermarket. I worked as a cashier on weekends to pay for my dorm room. He came every Saturday and bought the same things: milk, bread, frozen vegetables. Once, when I was ringing up his purchases, he smiled and said, "You're always so focused. It's like you're saving the world, not selling groceries." I laughed. He asked me to the movies. That's how it all started. Marcus was simple. He worked as a warehouse dispatcher, lived in a small apartment on the outskirts, loved watching old movies and cooking macaroni and cheese. He didn't promise me the moon, but with him, I felt seen for the first time, not compared to Veronica, just seen. When I found out I was pregnant, I was scared at first. Daniel stroked her back and said nothing. My mother sat next to her, holding Veronica's hand and repeating, "Everything will be fine, sweetheart. You deserve this happiness. You're the best." I stood behind the door and didn't dare to enter. That evening, I didn't say anything about my pregnancy. The next day, too. A week passed before I gathered my courage. When I finally told her, my mother wasn't happy. She wasn't upset. She just nodded and said, "I understand," and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. The next day, Veronica came and threw a tantrum right in the hallway. She yelled that I did it on purpose, that I wanted to humiliate her, that I always ruin everything. My mother didn't stand up for me. She calmed Veronica down, saying, "Don't worry, daughter, everything will be fine." And then she didn't talk to me for a week because I didn't show enough sympathy for my sister. Now I was sitting in the kitchen looking at my mom, who was calmly drinking tea, and telling me that my child would not belong to me. The phone was lying on the table next to me. I mechanically picked it up, my fingers shaking so much that I could barely press the record button. Then I opened the call app and started adding contacts. Aunt Joyce, Cousin Lenny, Grandma Martha, Cousin Kate, all on my dad's side. I put it on silent mode. "Mom," I stared at her, trying to keep my voice calm. "Explain it to me again." "What exactly do you mean?" She sighed as if I were forcing her to repeat something obvious. "So you wouldn't take it to heart. You're a smart girl, Grace. You'll understand that this is the right thing to do." I nodded, even though inside I was screaming. I found the speakerphone button with my fingers and pressed it. The phone beeped softly. "Okay, Mom, please, tell me more. Who exactly made this family decision?" Belinda frowned but continued. Well, me, Veronica, Daniel, of course. We all discussed it last Wednesday while you were in class. Veronica was crying, saying it was her last chance. She's already 29, and the doctors say that after 30, the chances are even slimmer. But you're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. We just want this child to have the best future possible. Does Dad know? Dad. She waved her hand dismissively. You'll be able to see the baby whenever you want. Well, when Veronica allows it, of course. She'll be the mother. She'll decide what's best for the baby. Silence. I heard the phone vibrate quietly. Someone in the call had written a message in the chat, but the sound was turned off. They heard it. Everyone heard. I picked up the phone, turned on the sound, and placed it on the table between us, screen up. The names lit up on the screen. Aunt Joyce, Grandma Martha, Lenny, Kate. Everyone in one call. Mom, I said loudly so everyone could hear. You just said that my baby isn't mine, that you're going to give her to Veronica without my consent. Is that right? Belinda raised her head sharply, her eyes darting to the phone. Her face turned pale at first, then red. She looked at me as if I had just killed someone in front of her. You ruined everything, she whispered, then louder. Now everyone will think that I'm a bad mother, that I want to hurt you. Grace, do you realize what you've done? My reputation? What will the whole family say now? She cried. Not because of me, not because she had hurt me or because her plan had failed. She cried because now everyone knew, because her reputation was ruined, because her relatives had heard the truth. I stood there with the phone in my hand, listening to the voices coming from the speaker, outraged, shocked. Aunt Joyce was yelling something about it being unacceptable. Grandma was crying. Lenny demanded the address, saying he was coming over right away. And my mother sat at the table, her face buried in her hands, sobbing. Her shoulders shook, and broken sounds escaped her lips. You've destroyed everything, she repeated through her tears. Everything I've built, my family, my reputation. I turned off the ringer and went out onto the balcony. My hands were still shaking, but suddenly I felt calm inside. The cold air hit my face, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was breathing deeply. I would be a mother in 6 months, and no one would take my child away from me, even if I had to fight my whole family. That same evening, around 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Mom was still in the bedroom, hadn't left since the scandal. I opened the door and saw Veronica. She stood in the doorway in a strict dark coat, her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, her face stony without any emotion. May I come in? Her voice was cold and controlled. I stepped back, letting her in. Veronica walked into the kitchen, sat down in the same spot where Mom had been sitting a few hours earlier, and stared at me for a long time. Her eyes were dry, but they were so full of rage that it made me feel uneasy. You ruined everything, she said quietly, as if stating a fact. Mom is hysterical right now. Daniel has called me 5 times. Aunt Joyce wrote that I'm a manipulator. But that's not the end of it, Grace. You think you've won? No, I have your correspondence with Marcus. And there are things in there that you wouldn't want him to know about. Or, my heart skipped a beat. I didn't understand what she was talking about. What correspondence? Veronica, what are you talking about? She smiled coldly, triumphantly. She got up, adjusted her coat, and headed for the door. At the threshold, she turned around. You'll find out soon enough, and then we'll see which one of us gets to keep the baby. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. Messages from Aunt Joyce, Grandma, Lenny, even my cousin, whom I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Everyone was asking if I was okay, if I needed help, if my mother really wanted to take the baby. I didn't reply to anyone. I just lay on my bed in the dorm, stared at the ceiling, and tried to figure out what Veronica meant. What messages? I didn't write anything like that to anyone. At 8 in the morning, my only close friend, Tess, wrote to me. We met in our freshman year. She was studying to be a nurse. The message was short. Grace, call me. Urgent. I dialed the number, my hands shaking. Tess, what happened? Grace. Her voice sounded tense. Veronica just sent me a screenshot of our correspondence, only I never wrote any of that. It looks like you're telling me that you got pregnant on purpose so Marcus wouldn't leave you. That he wanted to break up and you decided to hook him with a baby. I gasped. What? Tess, that's not true. I never said that. I know, she replied quickly. Of course I know. What if he doesn't believe me? What if he sees these screenshots and decides that I really was manipulating him? I got dressed, grabbed my bag, and drove to Marcus's place. He lived on the outskirts of town in a small 2-room apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building without an elevator. When I knocked on the door, he opened it immediately as if he had been waiting. His hair was tousled, his face unshaven, and he was holding a cup of coffee. Grace? He smiled, but the smile disappeared when he saw the look on my face. What happened? I went inside, took off my jacket, and sat down on the sofa. I told him everything. About my mother, about the family decision, about how I recorded the conversation and included my relatives in the call, about Veronica, who came over last night, about the fake correspondence. Marcus listened silently, his face darkening with every word. She forged your correspondence? He finally said. That's a crime, isn't it? I don't know. I rubbed my face with my palms. Maybe. But the main thing is she wants to show it to you, so you'll think I got pregnant on purpose. He sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders. Grace, I know you. I'm not going to believe some screenshots. We've been together for almost a year. I know what you're like. You're not like that. I wanted to believe him. But the fear wouldn't go away. Veronica was good at persuading people. She always had been. What if she shows it to your mom? I asked quietly. Marcus fell silent. His mother, Sheila, was a woman of strong principles. He hung up and looked at me. Your mom called mine 2 days ago. She said you were too young, not ready, that she was afraid for you, that you were emotionally unstable, and that maybe the pregnancy was a way to keep me. Mom didn't believe her then. But Belinda just sent her screenshots of your correspondence. I felt cold inside. They worked together, Marcus said quietly. My mom and yours. 10 years ago at that same clinic. They weren't close, but they knew each other. And now Belinda is using that. I couldn't believe it. Mom planned this in advance. She knew what she was doing. It wasn't an impulsive act. It was a calculated strategy. Let's go to my mom's, Marcus said, taking the car keys. It's fake, I said, trying to stay calm. Veronica faked this correspondence. I never wrote anything like that. You can check my phone, my correspondence with Tess. There's nothing like that there. Sheila was silent, studying me. Why would Veronica want to do this to you? She finally asked. Because my mother wants me to give her my baby, I replied. Veronica can't get pregnant. She has fertility issues, and my mother has decided that my baby should belong to her. Sheila leaned back in her chair, her face pale. Belinda told me that you offered it yourself, that you're not ready to be a mother and want Veronica to take custody of the baby after it's born. That's a lie. Marcus banged his fist on the table. Mom, Grace wants this baby. We both want it. Sheila looked at us for a long time, then sighed. Show me your phone. I unlocked my phone and handed it to her. She opened the conversation with Tess, scrolled up and read a few messages. Then she nodded. There's nothing here. And these screenshots, she looked at her phone screen again. If you look closely, the font is slightly different. And the time of the messages, they were all sent at the same minute. It's as if someone wrote them in a row without pausing. Marcus stood up, walked over to his mother and hugged her. I'm sorry you're involved in this. Don't apologize, Sheila put her hand on his shoulder. It's not your fault, and it's not Grace Belinda's fault. She's always been manipulative. I know. He finally looked at me. There was fatigue in his eyes, but no judgment. I know, and it's not right. But your mother, she won't listen to me. She never has. Just then, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it, and a minute later, Aunt Joyce entered the living room. She was 5 years younger than Dad, but she looked older. Life at the post office, with its constant queues and complaints, was exhausting. Her hair was short and gray, her face stern, but her eyes were kind. "Ronald," she said, taking off her coat, "get Belinda and Veronica. We're going to deal with this now." Dad didn't argue. He called Mom, and she came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. When she saw Joyce, she tensed up. "Joyce, this is none of your business," Belinda began. "It is my business," her aunt interrupted, "because you decided to control my niece's life. Call Veronica, tell her to come over." Mom wanted to say something, but Dad nodded to her. She reluctantly took out her phone and dialed Veronica's number. Half an hour later, we were all sitting in the living room. Dad was silent. Mom was nervously twisting a napkin in her hands. Veronica was sitting with a stony face, and I was sitting next to Aunt Joyce. "Explain to me," Joyce began, looking at Mom and Veronica in turn. "How did you come to the conclusion that you could take the child away from Grace?" "We're not taking her away," Belinda raised her chin. "We're just offering an alternative. Grace is too young. Veronica has everything she needs to raise a child. Grace is 22. She's an adult. She can make her own decisions." "But she's not ready," Belinda exclaimed. "She doesn't understand what children are like. She hasn't even finished college. Do you understand what it means to take a child away from your own daughter?" Joyce's voice grew firmer. "Belinda, what happened to you? You've always been difficult, but this, you don't understand." Mom stood up, her face red. "Veronica deserves this. She's suffering. She can't have children. And Grace was just living her life, and suddenly she got pregnant. It's not fair." Aunt Joyce stood up too. "Life isn't fair, but that doesn't mean you can fix it at the expense of one daughter for the benefit of another." Veronica had been silent the whole time, staring at the floor. Her hands were clenched into fists. "Veronica," I said quietly, "say something." She raised her head, and I saw such hatred in her eyes that it made me shudder. "You ruined everything, Grace." As always, she got up and left the room, slamming the door loudly. Mom rushed after her, but Dad stopped her. "Belinda, that's enough." She turned to him, tears in her eyes. "Are you against me, too? Is everyone against me?" Dad didn't answer. He just looked at her with a tired gaze. That night, I lay in my old room in my parents' house, unable to sleep. At 2 a.m, my phone vibrated quietly. Unknown number. I opened the message. "Your sister isn't as saintly as Mom thinks. Ask her about Edgar Bill and why she can't actually have children. It's not a medical problem." I stared at the screen. "Who is Edgar Bill and who sent this message?" I replied. "Who are you?" But there was no answer. The number was anonymous. I screenshotted the message and fell asleep only in the early hours of the morning, with one thought in my head. I need to find out the truth about Veronica. The next morning, I sat in a small coffee shop on the corner, holding a cup of cold coffee and staring at my laptop screen. Edgar Bill. I typed the name into search engines for an hour straight, but found nothing. No social media profiles, no mentions. It was as if this person didn't exist at all. Marcus sat across from me, chewing on a croissant and glancing at me from time to time. "Maybe it's someone playing a joke," he asked cautiously. "Sending you a fake message to confuse you?" I shook my head. "No, someone knows something about Veronica, something my mom doesn't know, and it has something to do with why she can't have children." "But you said yourself that she has problems after IVF." "That's what my mom told me. But what if that's not the whole truth?" I closed my laptop and took out my phone. I found the number of a private investigator that Tess had once recommended. Her brother had used his services when he was looking for his father, who had disappeared 30 years ago. The investigator found him in 2 weeks. It took a long time to dial the number. Finally, someone answered. "Hello," said a low male voice. "Hello, my name is Grace Caldwell. I need help." He was married to your sister, Veronica Caldwell, 5 years ago. The marriage was registered in March, and the divorce was finalized the following February. The marriage lasted less than a year. There are no records of children. I gasped. "Are you sure?" Absolutely. The documents are in the archives. Would you like me to send you copies?" "Yes, please. One more thing. I found his profile on a social network. He's not very active, but the profile isn't hidden. I can send you the link." 5 minutes later, I was looking at a photo of Edgard Bill, a man of about 35, dark hair, glasses, an ordinary face. In the photo, he was standing by a lake, holding a fishing rod and smiling. Nothing special. An ordinary man. I wrote him a private message. "Hello, Edgard. My name is Grace Caldwell. I am Veronica's younger sister. I need to talk to you about her. It's very important. Please contact me." There was no reply for a whole day, then 2. I was starting to think he was ignoring me. But on the 3rd day in the evening, the phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, is this Grace Caldwell?" A man's voice, calm, a little tired. "Yes, Edgar Bill, you wrote to me about Veronica." I sat up straight on the couch. "Yes, thank you for calling. I need to know the truth." "About why you broke up. About what happened between you." A long pause. "Why do you need to know?" I told him everything. "I'll just sit at the next table. If anything goes wrong, I'll be there." I didn't argue. On Saturday, we arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. Marcus sat at a table by the window, and I sat closer to the entrance. I ordered tea, even though I didn't want anything to drink. My hands were shaking, so I hid them under the table. At 2 o'clock, a man in a dark coat and glasses walked in. He looked around, saw me, and approached. "Grace." "Yes." "Please sit down." He sat down opposite me, took off his glasses, and rubbed his nose. He looked tired but not hostile. The waitress approached, and he ordered coffee. "So," he began when the waitress left, "you want to know about Veronica?" "Yes." He sighed and crossed his arms over his chest. "We met 6 years ago. She worked at a car dealership, and I came to buy a car. She was charming, beautiful, confident, knew how to talk to people. We started dating. A year later, we got married. I thought it would be forever." He paused when the waitress brought coffee. He took a sip and continued. 3 months after the wedding, Veronica got pregnant. I was happy, really. But she said she wasn't ready yet, that she needed to build her career first. I didn't insist. I thought it was her body, her choice. She had an abortion. I supported her even though it hurt me. His voice became quieter. 6 months later, she got pregnant again. And again, she had an abortion. This time, she didn't even discuss it with me. She just said she had already done it. I started asking why. Why didn't she want children at all if she hadn't planned to have them in the first place? She shouted that I didn't understand, that children would ruin her life, that she didn't want to be like her mother, tied to the house and children. I listened without breathing. The 3rd pregnancy happened almost by accident. We had a fight, didn't talk for a week, and then somehow made up. A month later, she said she was pregnant again. I begged her not to have an abortion. I said I would take care of the child and that she wouldn't have to change anything in her life. But she didn't listen. She went to the clinic and had an abortion. And then the complications began. He took another sip of coffee, his hands shaking. Bleeding. Infection. She was hospitalized. The doctor said that because of the damage, she might not be able to get pregnant again. Veronica blamed me. She said that I forced her to have abortions, even though it was her idea, every time. I couldn't take it anymore. I filed for divorce. Silence. I sat there not knowing what to say. "Did your mother know about it?" I finally asked. "No. Veronica hid our marriage from everyone. The wedding was just at the city hall without guests. She said she wanted peace and quiet without unnecessary attention. I agreed. Now I understand that she just didn't want anyone to know. When we divorced, she asked me not to tell anyone in her family. She said she was ashamed. I agreed. I just wanted to forget about it all, and I didn't care anymore." He looked me in the eyes. "And now she wants to take your child away?" "Yes," he shook his head. That's crazy. Veronica ruined her chance to have children by her own choice. And now she wants to take someone else's. Grace, don't let her do that. She won't change. She's always thought she was entitled to everything." After talking to Edgar, I sat in the car with Marcus, staring out the window, not knowing what to do. I had a recording of the conversation. Edgar had allowed me to record everything on a voice recorder, but did I have the right to use it? "But what do you think?" I asked Marcus. He was silent, his hands on the steering wheel. "I don't know, Grace. It's difficult. On the one hand, it's true. On the other hand, you'll destroy the family for good if you tell your mom. But they want to destroy my life. I know that you're not ready to be a mother and want us to adopt the baby after it's born. Is that true?" I froze. "What? No, Daniel, that's not true. She's lying." He leaned back in his chair, his face even paler. She's lying to me?" "Yes." Mom and Veronica decided without me that my baby would belong to her. I never agreed to that. Daniel covered his face with his hands. "God, I thought it was your decision, that you wanted this. Veronica said you were too young, that you were afraid of the responsibility. I believed her." Dad came over to the table and sat down next to me. "Daniel, did you know about this the whole time?" "No. She only told me last week. She said it was an opportunity for us, that Grace wanted to help us. I didn't know it was manipulation." Daniel left soon after, and I realized that darkness was descending more and more on our family. The week after my conversation with Edgar, I lived in constant tension, waiting to see what would happen next. Mom didn't call. Veronica was silent, too. Dad sent short text messages. "How are you? Everything okay?" But nothing more. Aunt Joyce stopped by twice, brought groceries, and assured me that the family was on my side. But I felt that this was the calm before the storm. Marcus tried to distract me. We went to the movies, walked in the park. He cooked dinner and told silly jokes to make me smile. But inside, I was gripped by anxiety. My belly was already noticeably rounded. I was 4 months pregnant. I took them with trembling hands and began to read. Declaration of voluntary renunciation of parental rights. Consent to transfer the child. At the bottom was my signature. That's not me," I whispered, staring at the signature. It looked like mine, but I never signed this paper. "You signed it last week," my mother said calmly. "When you came home. Don't you remember?" "I didn't sign anything." "Mom, this is a forgery." She smiled, coldly without any warmth. "Prove it. We have a witness, the lawyer who was present at the signing. He will confirm that you signed voluntarily." I couldn't believe it. Mom had forged my signature. She had hired a lawyer who was willing to lie. They really planned to take my child away, and I didn't know how to stop them. "You can't do this," I said, standing up and clutching the paper in my hands. "It's illegal. I'll go to the police." "And what will you tell them?" Mom stood up too, her voice remaining calm and controlled. "That your mother and sister want to help you with the baby, that you agreed because you're not ready. Grace, you're young, you're a student, you live in a dorm. Who will believe that you can raise a child? Veronica is a grown woman with a stable job, a home, a husband. The court will rule in her favor. This is manipulation. It's not true. It's reality," Mom snapped. "And the sooner you realize that, the easier it will be for everyone. The child will be better off with Veronica. You're still young, you'll have another. But this child belongs to her. She picked up the folder from the table, headed for the door, and turned around at the threshold. "Think about it, Grace. We don't want to hurt you. We want everyone to be happy." She left, leaving me standing in the middle of the room with a broken heart and empty hands. I called Marcus right away. He arrived in 20 minutes, and I told him everything, showed him the photos of the documents I had managed to take before my mother took the folder. "It's fake," he said, studying the photos. "You need to go to the police. This is a crime." What if my mother is right? I sat on the bed, hugging my knees. What if the court decides that I'm not capable of raising a child? What if the lawyer really says that I signed? Then we'll find another lawyer, Grace. You can't give up. It's your child. I knew he was right, but fear paralyzed me. Fear of losing my child. Fear of destroying my family for good. Fear that my mother would win, because she always did. The next day, when I returned from class, Daniel was waiting for me outside the dorm. He looked terrible, unshaven, in a wrinkled shirt with dark circles under his eyes. "Grace, can we talk?" he asked quietly. We went into a small coffee shop across from the dorm. Daniel ordered coffee but didn't touch it. He just twirled the cup in his hands and stared at the table. "Veronica, she's changed," he finally began. "She cries every night. She talks about the baby as if it were already born, as if she already had it. Last week, she bought a crib. The day before yesterday, she bought a stroller. She says Veronica has the right to dream, that her dream will come true soon. Grace, your mom is pushing her into this. She's not letting her face reality." "Daniel, I don't know how to stop them," I said quietly. "Mom forged my signature on the documents. They've already started the custody process." His face turned pale. "What? That's illegal." "I know, but they have a lawyer who will say I signed voluntarily." Daniel covered his face with his hands and sat like that for a few minutes. Then he raised his head. "Grace, talk to Veronica. Alone. Without your mom. Maybe if you tell her directly that you won't give up the baby, she'll understand. Maybe she needs to hear it from you. I didn't believe it would help." But Daniel looked at me with such hope that I couldn't refuse. "Okay, I'll talk to her." The next evening, I arrived at Veronica and Daniel's house. It was a small house on the outskirts of town, with a neat lawn and a white fence. Daniel opened the door, nodded to me, and said quietly, "She's in the nursery." "Upstairs, second door on the right." I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I could hear every beat. I stopped at the door, behind which I could hear quiet murmuring. I knocked. "Come in." Veronica's voice was calm, almost happy. I opened the door and froze. The room was painted a soft pink, with a white canopy crib in the corner, dozens of toys on the shelves, and butterfly stickers on the walls. Veronica was sitting in a rocking chair, holding a small teddy bear and smiling. "Grace," she raised her head, her smile still there. "Look, I've got everything ready. My daughter will live here." "Veronica." I stepped into the room, trying to remain calm. "This is my child, not yours." The smile on her face faded. She put the bear on her lap and slowly stood up. "No, Grace, this is my child. Mom said so." "We're already filing the paperwork." "You forged my signature." "I didn't forge it," she protested, but her voice was tinged with hysteria. "You agreed to it yourself. You said you weren't ready." "I never said that." "Veronica, listen to yourself. You're going crazy." She lunged at me and grabbed my shoulders. "I'm not going crazy. You stole my life. You always got everything. Dad loved you more. Boys paid attention to you. And me, I was always second. And now that I finally have something of my own, you want to take it away from me again. Veronica, that's my baby. You can't just take her." She pushed me away, her face contorted. "I can. I'll do anything to take her away. I'll tell everyone that you used drugs during your pregnancy, that you're inadequate, that you're dangerous to the child. I'll find a way, Grace. I always find a way." I backed away toward the door, my heart pounding so hard it was hard to breathe. "You're really going crazy?" I whispered. "Get out!" Veronica shouted, throwing a teddy bear at me. Daniel was silent for a few seconds. Then he asked quietly, "Is it something about her past?" "Yes." I squeezed the phone tighter. "And it will change everything." Daniel arrived exactly an hour later. I opened the door to the dorm, and he came in looking like he hadn't slept all night. We went up to my room, and I made tea, although he didn't touch his cup. He just sat on the edge of a chair and waited. I took out my phone, found the audio file, and placed the phone on the table between us. "Daniel, what you're about to hear will change everything you know about Veronica," I said quietly. "I met her ex-husband. No one in the family knows about him, not even Mom." His eyes widened, but he didn't say a word. I pressed play. Edgard's voice filled the room, calm, sad, detailed. A story about marriage, about 3 pregnancies, about 3 abortions, about how Veronica gave up her children again and again until her body gave up on her, about complications, about the hospital, about how she blamed him for everything, about divorce, about the secret she kept from everyone. Daniel sat motionless, staring at one spot. His face gradually changed. Surprise, shock, pain, anger. When the recording ended, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. "Is it true?" he finally asked, without looking at me. "Yes, I hired a detective. He found the marriage certificate, the divorce papers. Everything can be verified." He left without saying goodbye. I listened to his footsteps receding down the hallway, unsure if I had done the right thing. The next day, my phone exploded with messages. Dad wrote, "What have you done?" Mom didn't write, but Aunt Joyce called and said that Daniel had yelled at Veronica last night, that there had been a huge scandal, that Veronica had initially denied everything, screaming that Edgar was a liar, that it was all made up. But Daniel had already checked the facts. He found their marriage certificate in the city database, called the hospital where Veronica had been after her last abortion, and confirmed the medical records. "He packed his things and left," said Aunt Joyce. "He went to his brother's house in the next town. He said he was filing for divorce. Grace, Veronica is alone in that house now, and your mother is with her. Belinda is in shock. She can't believe Veronica hid this from her for so many years. I felt not triumph, but emptiness. The family was falling apart, and I was one of the reasons for it, but I didn't start it." That evening, my mother came to my dorm. She didn't call or write beforehand. She just knocked on the door, and when I opened it, she burst in. "Wait, you destroyed her!" she shouted, not letting me say a word. "You destroyed your sister's life. Daniel left. She's alone. She cries all day long. It's all because of you." "Mom, I only told the truth." "Listen to this. Until the end. Don't interrupt." Edgard's voice filled the room. Mom listened, her face gradually turning pale. She clenched her hands on her knees, her lips trembling. When the recording ended, she sat motionless, staring at the floor. "She never told me," Mom whispered. "She said she had a congenital problem, that the doctors found it after the examination. She lied to me. All these years." "Yes." I sat down opposite her. "She lied. And now she wants to take my child away to make up for what she destroyed. And you're helping her. You forged my signature on the documents. You called Marcus's mother and lied about me. You're trying to ruin my life for Veronica's sake." Mom raised her head, tears in her eyes. "I just wanted her to be happy. She's my daughter. She suffered so much." "What about me? I'm your daughter too, but you never cared about me the way you cared about her." Mom didn't answer. She just got up, grabbed her bag, and walked to the door. She turned around at the threshold. "You're not my daughter anymore," she said quietly. "I don't want to see you." The door closed, and I was left alone. I didn't cry. I just sat on the bed and stared at the empty wall, feeling something inside me break completely. The next few months passed in a fog. The pregnancy progressed. My belly grew and I went to class, worked part-time at the supermarket, and tried not to think about my family. Dad called once a week, but the conversations were short and tense. "Sorry, I can't be there. Mom won't let me." I didn't reply. The labor lasted 12 hours. Marcus held my hand, never letting go, even when I squeezed it so hard it hurt. When I finally heard the baby's first cry, I cried with relief. "It's a girl," said the doctor, placing a small warm bundle on my chest. "Congratulations." I looked at her tiny face, red, wrinkled, beautiful, and felt something inside me fall into place. "Lily," I whispered. "Her name is Lily." Marcus kissed me on the forehead. "She's perfect," he said, his voice trembling. Aunt Joyce and Sheila came into the room later, both with bouquets of flowers and big smiles. Sheila looked at Lily for a long time, then hugged me. "You're amazing, Grace. Really amazing." I returned home 2 days later. Marcus helped me with everything. He took time off work, cooked, cleaned, and changed diapers in the middle of the night. Aunt Joyce came by every day, brought food, and helped with Lily. Grandma sent another package with baby clothes, diapers, and a few $100s. Veronica and my mother were silent. Not a single call, not a single message. 3 months after giving birth, Marcus and I were sitting in the park. Lily was sleeping in her stroller, wrapped in a soft pink blanket. Marcus held my hand as we looked at the trees, which were just beginning to sprout leaves. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I took it out and saw a message from an unknown number. "I hate you. I hate you so much. But I don't know if it's me who hates you or something inside me. I'm not sure about anything, but I wish you happiness. Don't become like me, no matter how much I hate you." I stared at the screen. Veronica. Her treatment was continuing, but judging by this message, progress was slow and painful. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted the message and put my phone back in my pocket. A few minutes later, another text message arrived from my mother. "Can I see my granddaughter just once?" I stared at the message for a long time. Marcus looked at me. "Your mom?" "Yes." "What do you want to do?" I didn't know. Part of me wanted to say no, to close that door forever. But another part, the part that remembered my mom singing me lullabies, treating my scraped knees, hugging me after nightmares, couldn't just let it go. "I don't know," I answered honestly. One evening, while I was feeding Lily, Sheila called. She asked how we were doing, if we needed any help, and then, after a pause, she said, "Grace, there's something you need to know. That anonymous message you received about Edgard Bill, I sent it to you." I froze, pressing the phone to my ear. "What?" "I worked at that hospital when Veronica had her abortions. I saw her in the hallway after the 3rd time when complications arose. I heard her arguing with her husband. I remembered his name. And when Marcus told me about the situation with the baby, I realized you had to know the truth, but I couldn't write to you myself. I'm still learning to accept you. I'm sorry about that, but now it's different. Now I see how strong you are. What a good mother you are," I gasped. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I was afraid. I was afraid you would think I was interfering. But now I'm glad I did. You saved yourself and Lily, and I'm proud of you." After the call, I sat in silence for a long time, looking at Lily sleeping. Sheila sent me that anonymous letter. She helped me, even when she wasn't ready to fully accept me. And now she's here, just like Aunt Joyce, just like Marcus. I looked at my phone where my mother's message was still lit up. "Can I see my granddaughter?" I couldn't forgive her yet. The wounds were too fresh, the pain too sharp. But maybe someday, maybe when my mother realizes what she's done, when Veronica recovers, if she recovers, maybe then we could talk again. But not now. I locked my phone screen and picked up Lily. She woke up, blinked her tiny eyes, and smiled. That toothless, funny smile that made my heart melt. "You're mine," I whispered to her. And no one will take you away from me, no one. I was no longer a victim. I was a mother, and now I was the one who decided who would be allowed into Lily's and my life.